There's a moment every man faces when dealing with a woman who relies on manipulation. A moment most men never recognize, but it changes everything. It's not when she lies. It's not when she tests you. And it's not when she pulls away. It's the moment she realizes she can no longer control your emotions. Because a woman can only manipulate a man who reacts, who chases, who explains himself, who panics when she withdraws, who bends his standards to keep her close. But when you become a man who stays rooted, a man who doesn't respond to pressure, a man who doesn't fold under silence or drama, you break the entire system she's used to operating in. And when she sees that her old tactics don't work on you anymore, something shifts inside her. Her certainty cracks, her confidence slips, her power fades. She suddenly realizes she's dealing with a man she can't push, can't guilt, and can't control. And that moment, right there, is where everything changes. Not because you overpowered her, but because you stopped giving her access to the one thing she counted on: your reactions. And when a woman can't move a man emotionally, she doesn't know how to handle him. Let's break down exactly what happens next, and why this shift is the turning point in every dynamic built on games. The first crack in her power doesn't show up as anger or confrontation. It shows up as confusion. Because manipulation only works when you respond the way she expects. She pulls away, and you're supposed to chase. She gets cold, and you're supposed to warm up. She throws attitude, and you're supposed to over-explain. She goes distant, and you're supposed to panic. That predictable loop is what gives her leverage. But the moment you stop feeding that pattern, the moment you stay calm instead of reactive, she feels something she's not used to feeling with men: a loss of control. She sends a dry text hoping you'll overinvest. You reply calmly and carry on with your day. She tries to provoke insecurity. You don't bite. She withholds attention to trigger fear. You go inward instead of chasing. And for the first time, she realizes the dynamic has shifted. She can't steer your emotions. She can't dictate your pace. She can't push you into acting from fear rather than intention. This is where most men crumble. Because they're so afraid of losing her, they abandon their dignity to keep the connection alive. But when you don't move, when you refuse to negotiate your self-respect for closeness, it hits her harder than anything you could ever say, because it tells her one thing with absolute clarity: you like her, but you don't need her. And women can feel the difference instantly. Neediness is what gives her power. Indifference kills the entire psychological framework she's been using. This is the moment she realizes she's dealing with a man who cannot be emotionally cornered. And whether she admits it or not, that changes how she sees you. The moment she senses she's losing emotional influence, she doesn't back down. She doubles down. This is the part most men misread. They think she's getting worse, more distant, more inconsistent, more dramatic. But she's not. What you're seeing is her system scrambling because the tactics that used to work on you suddenly don't. She needs to confirm whether your new strength is real or temporary. So she escalates. She might pull away harder. She might get colder. She might take longer to reply. She might test your jealousy subtly. She might create emotional tension just to see if you crack. None of this is about hurting you. It's about checking if she still has access to the emotional version of you she could control. If you react, she knows your confidence is fragile, and she regains power. If you stay grounded, if your behavior doesn't change, if you remain calm, consistent, and unfazed, that's when she realizes something she didn't expect. Your strength isn't a performance. It's who you are now. And that recognition hits her on two levels. Emotionally, she feels unsure, exposed, and a little intimidated, because you're not following the emotional script she's used to. Psychologically, she understands she can't predict or shape your behavior, which forces her to interact with you honestly instead of manipulatively. Her old tricks don't get a rise from you. Her silence doesn't pull you in. Her attitude doesn't derail your state. Her inconsistency doesn't make you chase. You've become a man who doesn't negotiate with emotional chaos, and that puts her in a position she's rarely been in. She has to show up as her real self. This is where the dynamic transforms, not because you changed her, but because you changed your response to her patterns. This is the moment men never see, because it doesn't happen in front of you. It happens in her mind. When she realizes she can't manipulate you, the first thing she feels isn't anger, it's uncertainty. And for a woman who uses control as emotional protection, uncertainty is terrifying. She starts questioning herself. Why isn't he reacting? Why doesn't he chase? Why doesn't he try to fix it? Why do I feel like I'm losing him? Why does he seem so stable when I'm trying to destabilize him? Her manipulation wasn't about power for fun. It was her way of testing emotional safety. A woman who relies on subtle control is usually hiding fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of not being enough. Fear of losing influence. Fear of getting too close. Manipulation was her armor. But when you don't react, when you don't feed the pattern, when you stay calm and grounded, her armor stops working, and she's forced to feel the emotions she was trying to avoid. That's why she suddenly becomes quieter, more reflective, more observant. She starts taking you seriously, because she realizes you're not playing the emotional chess game she's used to winning. Instead of controlling you, she becomes aware of you. Your silence hits differently. Your stability becomes attractive. Your lack of emotional reactivity makes her respect you. Not because you're cold, but because you're self-governed. And once she feels that shift, she goes through a very predictable internal process. 1. Confusion. Why isn't this working? 2. Curiosity. What kind of man doesn't react? 3. Respect. He's different from the others. Reflection. Maybe my behavior needs to change. 5. Attraction or withdrawal, depending on her emotional maturity. Her manipulation collapses not because you fought her, but because you forced her to confront the truth. The only power she had was the power you gave her. And once you take it back, the entire dynamic resets. Once she realizes she can't move you emotionally, the entire dynamic shifts. Not because she changed, but because your behavior forces a different structure. This is where your power becomes obvious without you ever raising your voice, debating, or trying to prove anything. You change the foundation itself. Instead of reacting to her inconsistency, you respond to her character. Instead of chasing her attention, you prioritize your mission. Instead of trying to fix the tension, you let her sit with the energy she created. And that's when she feels something unfamiliar. She doesn't get the emotional payoff she expected. You aren't trying to impress her. You're not apologizing just to keep the peace. You're not tolerating behavior that drains your self-respect. You're not rewarding games with attention. You're not abandoning your standards the moment she gets moody. You operate from a place she's not used to. Emotional leadership. A man who leads himself forces everyone around him to either rise or fall away. And women, even the difficult ones, instinctively respond to that. Her behavior will shift in one of two ways. 1. She gets more genuine. She softens. She communicates honestly. She becomes more consistent. She respects the boundaries you've enforced through your behavior because she feels safer with a man who can't be emotionally manipulated. 2. She gets more chaotic before she disappears. If manipulation is a core part of her identity, she won't know how to function with a man who takes away her favorite weapon. She'll escalate, test harder, or become cold. Not because you did anything wrong, but because she realizes she has no influence over you. Both outcomes serve you. You either upgrade the connection, or you filter out a woman who was never capable of a healthy dynamic. And the best part? You didn't have to argue, convince, prove your worth, or teach her how to behave. You simply stopped participating in the emotional games she relied on. You forced a shift just by standing firm in who you are. Here's where the entire dynamic reveals the truth. Not about her, but about whether she was ever compatible with the man you're becoming. Because once she understands she can't manipulate you, she has only 3 possible responses, and each one exposes her real character. 1. She respects you more and shows up differently. A mature woman doesn't need control. She needs stability. When she sees you can't be manipulated, she doesn't get offended. She gets relieved. Because a woman who's genuinely capable of connection doesn't want a man she can sway emotionally. She wants a man who stays calm under pressure, doesn't crumble when tested, stays grounded when she's overwhelmed, doesn't hand over his self-worth for affection. Your emotional steadiness becomes the anchor she gravitates toward. Her behavior becomes clearer, softer, more intentional. She no longer uses tests. She uses communication. She stops playing games because they don't work on you anyway. This is the kind of woman who can build with you. 2. She panics and escalates the games. If manipulation is her identity, not her defense mechanism, she'll feel exposed. Losing control of you feels like losing control of herself, so she intensifies. Colder replies, more silence, more hot and cold behavior, more attempts to trigger jealousy, more emotional volatility. She's trying to force the old dynamic back because she can't operate outside of it. This isn't attraction, this is dysfunction. And your lack of reaction doesn't calm her, it magnifies her insecurity. If she can't shift out of this stage, she's not a woman you move forward with. 3. She disappears. Not because you failed, but because you grew. The final reaction is the one that confuses most men. She pulls away completely. Not because she's over you, but because you broke the one leverage point she depended on. Your emotional predictability. Without that, she doesn't have the tools to maintain the connection. And instead of rising to your level, she retreats to the emotional environment where her manipulation works. Let her go. A woman who needs power to feel valued will never thrive next to a man building himself. The real takeaway: whether she gets better, gets worse, or vanishes, you win. Because once you become a man who can't be emotionally moved, one who responds instead of reacts, one who doesn't fear losing someone who brings chaos, you stop attracting women who feed on weakness, and you start attracting women who respect strength. That moment she realizes she can't manipulate you isn't the end of anything. It's the beginning of a healthier dynamic, whether that's with her or with someone who's actually capable of meeting you where you stand. If you're still here, you already know you don't think like most men. You're actually trying to understand yourself, your emotions, and the dynamics you get pulled into. That alone puts you ahead. So if this video woke something up in you, drop a comment. Tell me which part punched you in the gut. Hit the like button so YouTube pushes this to more men who need it. And subscribe, because every week you'll get content that sharpens your mindset and raises your standards. Keep building. Keep leveling up. And as always, stay relentless.